Okay, good morning everyone. Namaste. This one, thank you. Konnichiwa, if you are here from Japan as well. My name is Robert Stroud. I am a professor at Hosei University in Tokyo, Japan. I would first just like to thank the organizing committee for all the hard work that has been put into making it possible for not only my plenary speech, but all of the wonderful speeches you'll be watching over the next few days. I hope to learn a lot myself. I think we're in a stage where we need to remember that we are students too, especially with technology right now. It's impossible to understand all of it, so I myself hope to learn a lot as well. And the title of the presentation I'll be giving is Keeping an Eye on AI, What's Happening to Student Engagement. And before I start explaining the agenda, I think we should all really think about what it is we should be thinking about when we consider technology at the moment. What should we be thinking about? I think the very easy question that we all have and that we have every day is, what can AI do? So maybe everyone here today has been using their phone or computer and trying out something new with AI. It's exciting. We live in very exciting times. But I don't think this is the most important question for us right now. And I think this is something that a lot of the speakers you've heard have already mentioned. What we really need to be thinking about is AI helping our students grow? Is it something that's going to help them progress as humans, or is it something that's going to hold them back? A simpler way to put this that I've had colleagues say recently is, will AI make our students smarter or more stupid? And that's a very simple way to think about it, but also something you could ask. So we'll have a quick look at what AI is so far. What do we know about it so far? Then I'll talk about what my research covers, what is classroom engagement. And engagement isn't exactly motivation. Those two words are often confused. Engagement's much more about actions and how students are diving into the work. Motivation is just how they're feeling. It's a state. Are they ready to do it or not? So we'll talk about those because those are very important things to think about at the moment with students. Then the big question, how is AI changing classroom engagement? And then probably an even bigger question, how should we approach using it in class? What do we need to keep an eye on? And then I'm not sure if we have time for questions, but I'll try to have some time at the end as well. So let's take a quick look. What do we know about AI so far? This is a SWOT analysis. This is talking about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of using AI for classroom learning. So, a lot of the strengths we know already. Students can get lots of information. They get it fast. Speed is a big thing. It's personalized. Students can get information that's exactly for their question, not the entire classroom. We know all of these things, right? So what opportunities does it offer for us as teachers as well, and our students? We can use it for things like lesson planning. We can use it to create perhaps more scaffolding within the classroom. It can definitely save time, and again, personalize the learning. Now let's look at the other side, the weaknesses. The biggest one is training required to use it well. It's not easy to use AI effectively, and we really need to ask if our students are able to use it in a way that actually makes it an efficient part of their learning process or not. Trouble understanding responses, lack of depth and insight in those responses, and even the reliability and the bias within those responses. So if we're giving students this opportunity in our classrooms to use AI to help them with their work, we are really handing over a huge amount of trust to something. So we need to keep an eye on that, and I'll talk more about that. Now the threats as well. Globally, AI has the potential to create a lot of unequal and unfair access. You know, if some students can afford the latest versions of AI tools and some can't, maybe some don't even have phones. This makes it quite unfair within learning. Plagiarism and cheating, we're all very aware of the ability for it to maybe help students what we call cheat. And the bottom two there, if you can read those, are the two that concern me the most as an educator and also as a parent. If you think about your own children, maybe about yourself as well. The first one is shallow understanding of the content. Is AI going to take away students' ability to think more deeply about what they're looking at? And ultimately, a decline in cognitive skills. Are we hitting a dangerous part of our generation of students where slowly it requires less and less thinking for them to achieve things? Or will AI do the opposite and actually help them boost their thinking? That's what I'm going to explore with you now. But first, let's just make sure we're understanding what classroom engagement is. So to understand what it is, I'm going to give you 5 dimensions of engagement. There are more, but I think these 5 make up things that everyone here as a teacher will be familiar with. You'll understand about yourself and your students. So the first one is the actions and behaviors of students in your class. What are they doing in your class? What can you see them doing? The next one is their emotions and their feelings. How do they feel about the work we're giving them? Are they enjoying it? Are they hating it? Are they bored? The next one is how they interact and collaborate with each other. Those environments in the classroom where they talk and they work together as teams. We've got to protect that. That's a very important part of it too. The next one is how they invest cognitively. This one's probably going to be mentioned the most in research this year and next year about AI, I think. Are students thinking deeply because AI is becoming a part of their learning process? And the last one is how proactive they're being. That's a form of engagement. Are they taking chances to find their own answers, to be autonomous, to ask the teacher questions, things like that? So what we'll do for this presentation, I'll give each of these a term that you'll find in research, and I'll give it a kind of icon or a symbol so we can remember what it means. So the first one, not surprisingly, we're going to call behavioral engagement. And we'll give it this kind of running figure in this presentation. The emotions and feelings, emotional engagement. And we'll give it this smiley face or sad face symbol here. The next one about interaction, we'll call this social engagement. I've already heard a lot of talk about this at the conference this morning, people saying how AI can positively or negatively affect the way students socialize and talk to each other. So we'll give it this symbol here. And the next one is cognitive engagement. Again, I think everyone here is very interested in answers about this one. Are they thinking enough because of AI in the room, or is it reducing the amount they think about things? And the last one about proactiveness, agentic engagement. You'll find all of these in research. This has a hands up symbol you can see there. So today, we're going to consider these the 5 dimensions of classroom engagement. So please, as I keep talking, please think about your own students and think about yourself. Maybe think about your children. Think about which of these they may be doing well at or not so well at. And is AI playing a part in that? That could be a positive part or a negative part. Okay, just to give you a quick example of what this means. Let's think about what happened with the coronavirus, with COVID. We all taught face-to-face classes, and suddenly we had that taken away. If we were lucky enough to have the technology, perhaps Zoom and computers and internet, some people weren't, but if you were lucky enough to have that, we then switched to online classes. Now, my question to everyone here, to ask yourself, if you went through that experience, as I did, how did it change engagement? Consider your Zoom class or your Zoom meeting, your classroom at that point. So what happened to the engagement of your students? For me personally, in Japan, behavioral engagement in the classroom, I think students did a lot less. They took the opportunity of being online, perhaps not being observed, as a chance to do less. Emotional engagement, I think we had a mixed response. I think some students perhaps enjoyed it more. They enjoyed the learning, the technology being involved, maybe the apps that came in. That was fantastic. Maybe some of them didn't. Maybe some of them found it boring, or maybe just weren't interested in learning on a computer screen. Social engagement, I think that's really a clearer answer. That really suffered. They couldn't meet. If you wanted to speak in a classroom, you would have to speak to the entire class on the Zoom meeting. So people became quiet. So that had, I would say, a negative impact on social engagement, the switch to online. Cognitive engagement, again, what happened? Did students think less? Did they think more? Agentic engagement, did they take more chances to reach out to teachers with emails or messages or on meetings? Or did they withdraw and become more shy? So we can see this is a good example of something that happened not long ago with technology that really had a huge impact on engagement with our students. So what about AI? What's happening right now? What can we say about AI and our students? Maybe you're using it, maybe you're not. But I think we're in that stage, which is why I've titled the presentation, Keeping an Eye on AI, that we need to kind of slow down a bit, and we need to think about this before we rush in and say, oh, here's the latest tool, or here's the latest app. We can use that, let's use it, because it can do this, 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 this. Let's think about what impact that could actually have on our students. That's a much bigger question for us, isn't it? So let's go through all of these. There will be some references, some citations from papers, most of them from last year. There will be a reference list at the end, so you can look those up. As you know, there is a huge amount of published research on AI already, so I won't have time to go through every one of those. But I'll put all the references in for you, and you can catch up on those later in your own time. So behavioral engagement, let's take a look. So on the positive side, students can get quicker responses from AI, and for all students, not just on a screen for the whole class. So students can feel less frustrated, less bored. Perhaps you've seen this with your students. The more personalized learning approach, students can ask questions directly that they want to know and get that answer right away. That's amazing. We never had that. Another one to consider for language learning, for those of us here teaching English, less pressure and stress about errors. If they're talking, perhaps with a chatbot, or perhaps they're writing on a screen and getting answers, that's completely private to a student. So is that a good thing? I think maybe it is. Maybe that helps them feel a little bit worried, less worried about making an error in their English speaking or English writing as well. So what can happen? They might ask more questions. They might learn more because of these positive things. They might participate more in discussions. There's a couple of papers there that are suggesting that happens. Now, what do we need to keep an eye on, though? It isn't all positive. This image can maybe paint a picture. What could happen negatively about behavior of students in class because of AI? Bias can occur within algorithms. You can have algorithm bias. There are all kinds of different bias that AI is showing to have. Perhaps there's a student in a group, or perhaps many students in your class, whose AI direction of the learning just doesn't fit, or it doesn't agree with what they're thinking. It doesn't help them. So what could happen? You could have dominant speakers controlling discussions, those who are more into the AI or connect more with the content generated by AI. Some group members could even be marginalized, pushed out. So that's why, as you see in the top right of the screen there, keeping an eye on. That's our job as educators, I think. That's our job as teachers, to notice these things. Because as we go very quickly with AI, if we do bring it into our classrooms, these things can happen without us seeing it. So that's what we need to take care of, because students being pushed out of groups is not a good thing. Those students are not going to grow. Okay, let's look at emotions. So again, personalized responses from AI. Students can ask it anything they want. They can learn in any direction they want, potentially. It's more interesting. Anyone here who's used ChatGPT or any of the other models to ask it a question about something you really want to know the answer to, that's just much more interesting than waiting for a classroom answer. Deeper understanding of content. You keep digging and digging and digging. Students keep finding more and more information. It's fantastic. It's very, very inspiring. And their emotions are going to be very charged. They're going to be enjoying this learning, which is linked to memory, right? More confidence. They'll be more comfortable. There's research to suggest this can happen. Intrinsic motivation. That's shown to be a very important factor for learning long term. Not just us giving students motivation externally, but this intrinsic motivation from inside to find out answers themselves. That can really, really be a benefit of AI. More enjoyment, they enjoy it more. But let's look at the keeping an eye on. What do we need to be careful of? What could happen to your students' emotions negatively because of AI? And here's a picture to give us an idea. First, less human-like responses. Humanity is a theme of this conference, right? So ask yourself, the last time you asked a question to AI, did you feel any real connection with the response? Perhaps you got the answer you wanted, but is it important for a student to have that human connection in the responses? I think yes, and I think we all know why. Rapid shift between content. The speed at which you get responses from AI. If you leave your students alone with a phone and AI to ask questions, the speed at which they go through content is getting faster and faster as they get better and better at using it. So what's the problem with that? Well, first of all, the less human-like responses, we're talking about an impersonal feeling in work. We heard some wonderful stories this morning in the opening ceremony about people who remembered their students from in here. They have this connection, this love, this humanity. But if AI is becoming your teacher and you're losing that human connection, there's a huge danger that we're losing something far more important than just learning English or learning a language. In a classroom, we get much more out of the class than just the subject. We have the people, so we cannot forget that. Another one is students feeling overwhelmed and overloaded. Too much information coming at them. Fatigue. And a term called techno-stress. If you've not heard the term techno-stress, I think we need to take this very seriously. You should research more about this. Students feeling stressed because the technology is just coming at them too much. And they have this magnetic force towards asking more questions from the technology. This is something we need to keep an eye on, definitely. Thinking about our students, how stressed they may become because of AI. So the social aspect, number 3, we'll look at now. AI can facilitate interactions. It can help maybe quiet groups of students or students who aren't coming up with ideas together to start talking because it's this extra genius in their group, they might see it as. So more free-flowing group work, more interactions could happen. Why is that good? What are the benefits from that? More cohesion, more collaboration. Students can come together as teams better, possibly if we use AI in the right way, as that extra person, that extra, I don't want to say teacher, I would say positive group member to encourage them to think more and work together. More sharing, more learning. Better discussion and debate skills can develop as well. If students are having more time to discuss things, those personal skills, how to debate things, how to discuss them, that's going to improve because of AI. So what do we need to keep an eye on? What are the dangers? socially. Talking less to the teacher. I think this is something you probably have all thought about or worry about. Particularly you see in the news, teachers will be replaced by AI. I don't believe that can happen for language teachers because, as you've already heard in the keynote before this, the collaboration is the key to success with AI. Collaboration between the technology, the students, and the teacher. But the teacher maybe need to become something different. They'll need to become more of a guide or a facilitator. But it's only with those three things together, in my opinion, it can really work. Screen lock learning. Students zoomed in on screens, doing nothing but eyes down, like the photo of the young lady here, in a classroom. Is that how we want classrooms to look? Less human-like interactions, again. Are they going to miss out on the social aspects that they learn in class? So interpersonal skills development. I think teachers don't give themselves enough credit for what they actually teach their students every class. It isn't just how to speak a language. It isn't just how to learn a subject. It's how to interact with teachers, how to interact with classmates, how to help people deal with problems, how you deal with your own problems with other people. So if there's too much AI time within a classroom, we're going to lose that. You could argue that's even more important than learning English. And over-reliance. This is a huge thing as well. Are we going to become so dependent on the technology that we won't be able to put it down? Maybe that's something some of us have already started to experience with the use of AI in our lives as well. And again, weaker classroom connections. Friends. Making friends at school, even at university level, is a very important part of life. Let's not let AI get in the way of that. Let's not AI block friendships developing in a classroom environment. Okay, probably the biggest one here, I think most of us think about, cognitive engagement. Are students thinking better or worse or more or less because of AI coming into the picture? So let's look at the positive. They get detailed information. The possibility for varied viewpoints is good too. If there's an argument or a debate or a discussion, perhaps something in the news, AI, you can ask it to say, give me different opinions. You can try to bypass that bias that may come from just the first reaction it gives you. And at speed as well. So students may be able to think more deeply about their work because of that help. Considering more viewpoints. Think about humanity. Think about our future leaders as well. We want people who can think about different sides of different arguments. AI can give plenty of facts and plenty of help if we use it in the right way to help students do that. So why is that good? Better understanding of content, stronger opinions from people, more meaningful classroom interactions, probably more interesting as well. Recently with some of my seminar classes, we've been using AI as part of our debates. And I've given them a 5-minute AI break between debates and rebuttals. So the team can kind of gather together, search for information to support a counter argument, and then use that information in their counter to the other team. And it was fantastic the first time we tried it. I really recommend it because they not only have the passion to explain their opinions, but then they can have the facts to back them up in a short time. So it has this ability to help in this way. So what's the dark side? What are we looking at? What should we keep an eye on? There's a good picture too. Overload of information again. Too much content from AI. Generic AI responses, lacking depth. I think this is getting better and better as the technology improves, and as students learn to use it better. Certainly in the beginning, the responses would be very kind of basic. So yeah, not a lot of thinking going on with some of it. And this is a very important thing, probably one of the most important things I'd like to share today. Are our students going to start prioritizing speed over understanding? Because AI is going to be making them receive things very quickly. Are they going to get impatient? Are they going to want quick answers? Is this going to be like a cancel culture for Netflix? All those fantastic TV shows that you give 3 seconds to watch and go, nope, don't want that, without even thinking about it. Is our education going to become the same with our students? So demotivation, yeah, everything becomes very just kind of uninteresting because you're so used to AI giving you everything that you want. Skimming over work. I think people in here who've done a master's, a PhD, or published a paper, for example, took a lot of time to look through the papers, to find your ideas. Most importantly, to think about what you're reading. Does this apply to my ideas? Is that argument correct? But if students start using AI in a way where it's just coming at them all the time, it's just going to become a skimming culture in your classroom. You've got to be very careful of that. We need to keep an eye on that. And because of that, less ability to identify and evaluate sources. Is it going to become harder for students to actually find things they need themselves to support their arguments, for example? Will they totally rely on the technology to just tell them what they should say? That's another danger we have to worry about. And then ultimately, this passive consumption of information. We have to be very careful. And again, what should we keep an eye on? I've kept in the top right for all of these slides. I believe this is our job as teachers. I believe it's our job to be looking at what our students are doing while they're doing it. We don't have to be in the middle telling them what to do, but standing back and watching. What are they doing? Is this what we expect from our students? Okay, the last one, agentic. So this is a good picture as well. This is our students looking like this. Are they looking for answers? Are they asking questions? So quicker responses from AI for all students. It could spark their curiosity, could make them more curious about things, make them ask more questions. It could sustain their interest for longer, again, making them ask more questions and be more involved. So this could lead to self-directed learning, which is a dream for teachers, right? Autonomous students looking for their own answers, directing their own learning, using the teacher as a resource. Sounds absolutely wonderful. Not reality for most of us, but AI has the potential to help in that direction. And students, yeah, proactively seeking their own answers because of the AI helping them. But what do we need to keep an eye on? The overuse of AI, using it all the time to find their answers. So you ask your students a question, and they go, hold on a minute, and they sit and pull out the phone. Is that the reaction you want every time? Or do you want them to think first, and then maybe go to AI for some of it? So the dangers of that is that over-reliance that I mentioned. We don't want students relying 100% on AI, or waiting for answers, as I just said, rather than looking for them themselves. So this is a lot of stuff that I've talked about. I'd like to show you a little bit more from a project I've ran last year, a paper that's under review right now. It's not published yet, but it's under review. It should be published this year. I co-authored it with Jinming Du, a PhD candidate in New Zealand. And this was not just about language learning. This was about higher education in general. And we wanted to look at how students accept ChatGPT into their learning or not. So we managed to get data from almost 700 students across 9 universities in Japan, that was my side, also in China and New Zealand as well. And I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the data because there's so much that connects with the topic today. Is ChatGPT or is AI in general helping students to engage more, or is it becoming a burden? And I'll look at some of the most common responses from the open-ended survey questions and the semi-structured interviews that were done about how students felt about ChatGPT. What do you think the good points of it are, and what do you think the bad points of it are, basically? So we did a huge thematic analysis. There's a huge amount of data about the benefits and concerns from the students And we were very surprised. There was very little difference between Japan, China, or New Zealand in answers. It showed that a lot of students were thinking in the same way about the technology. And the main three things that students reported to help them in their learning in higher education. First one, number one, was studying more efficiently and saving time. Time saving was a really clear thing that all of these students thought, or almost all of the students would say to us, it helps me do things quicker. Here's a quote from a student. What would normally take 2 hours can be done in 10 minutes. So let's think about this. That sounds great, but thinking about what we talked about just earlier, about this impatience and this skimming over work and this surface level thinking. That's great, but we definitely need to make sure that if student learning does speed up, we also make sure that they're still thinking about what they're doing. The other thing they said was acquiring new knowledge and perspectives. It's very positive. A lot of them said they could learn new things and new ways of thinking about things. When I get stuck, it gives me new perspectives to think about things. Great. We thought that was a very positive finding, and a lot of the students think that. And the third one is generating new ideas and support with creativity. So whether you think AI can support creativity or not, the students seem to think so. So it gives you ideas and stimulates your imagination. It teaches me ideas that I would never have thought of. So it can kind of push them a little bit. Okay, the main three concerns, and this is from the students, by the way, not just research from people like myself or, future projects that we all do. This was for almost 700 students across 3 countries, across 9 universities. The top 3 things that they were worried about with ChatGPT: over-reliance. They said it themselves. I was kind of shocked. I thought they're not going to admit that. I didn't think they would say, oh, I'm going to become too reliant on this, but they were starting to feel it. One student said, I think that relying too much on ChatGPT will weaken your ability to think for yourself. Of course, all of this data was collected without names, anonymously. We didn't want students to feel like they could say things like this with us knowing who they were, which helped get very good data like this. Mistrust of the reliability and accuracy. ChatGPT isn't always correct, so you need to double check. Students definitely understand that. I think the technology is getting better and better, but I'm very happy to see that students know they have to check it. They know they shouldn't rely on it. And a lot of the students said that, which was great. And unfamiliarity with effective use. Students didn't know how to use it. This was from last year, so maybe it's getting better now, I think. I don't know how to interact with ChatGPT and get the answer to my questions. So again, as teachers, maybe that's our role. If we have AI in our classrooms, helping these many, many students who said this know how to use it effectively, not to waste time or waste thinking power. Okay, the last thing I'll talk about with you now is going on to how we should use ChatGPT. How should we approach it? I've thrown a lot of information at you, too much to remember, I'm sure, but I think we can keep things simple. What's the best way to check all these things? A checklist. So I've created a checklist, and I'll share this with you as well. We'll put a QR code up later, or send it to you if you want. It's nothing ingenious. It's a 25-question checklist for educators or instructors to think about themselves in terms of what AI is doing to their students. And it addresses all of these engagement factors and all of the research to date. So, let's take a look at the first part. The questions are quite small. I don't think you can read them that clearly. So part A is behavioral engagement, and it says, because of AI, are your learners, number one, doing more or less work overall in class? Very big question, very simple question. So you can watch them and think about this, or you can just reflect on what's happened since you used AI. Did they do more work or less work? And on the right side, you can do one of three things. You can either circle more, you can circle less, or there's another one, NCNS, which means no change or I'm not sure. And it's perfectly fine to put not sure because we're still thinking about it. If you don't have no idea, that's not a positive or a negative thing yet. But it means we should think about it. So for example, you could circle this one here. Number 2, are they speaking more or less in class? You could say more. Number 3, taking more or less chances to participate? I'm not sure, or no change. And maybe you could put less for number 4, participating more or less equally in pair or group work. Perhaps some people are dominating group work now because of AI. So that's a concern, right? And then you put some numbers here. This is not a perfect magic number score. This is just to help us think about it in a very simple way. And then we do the same for all 5 parts. So it goes on to emotional engagement. I've underlined for emotional engagement, do you think? Because you can't tell how your students are thinking. You can just guess. You know, are they enjoying it more? You can ask them as well. That's fine. But you don't know for sure. Cognitive engagement as well, the same. Do you think they're trying harder? Do you think they're thinking more? You have to say, do you think? Because we don't know what's going on inside. Social engagement, you can observe that. Are they talking more with others and things like that? And agentic engagement, simple. Are they asking you more or less questions? Did they suddenly all become quiet because you let them use their phones and use AI? Did they not talk to you anymore? Are you a lonely teacher now? That's probably a negative thing in the learning, right? And then you just give an overall score here. What you want to see is more as a high score. That would mean that AI is having a very positive effect. Less, not so big, but you could use those numbers to look back and say, okay, where are my problems because of AI? What do I need to address? Is it the feelings of the students? Is it the social aspect? And this checklist is very simple, but it helps us think simply about the most important thing, which is what students are doing. So I'm going to finish now. I just want you to think about your own classes. Many people here come from different countries, different contexts, but AI is the same thing and it has the same ability in our classes. So think about a class that you're studying in if you're a student, or you're teaching if you're a teacher right now. How might, or how did, if you're using it, AI change these in that class? How did it change the behavior, or how would it change it? The emotions, the social interactions, cognitive interaction or cognitive engagement of students, and the agentic engagement. Are they really looking for their own answers? And I've made this into a QR code as well. You can steal that, it's free. Or I'm happy to send this to people if they want a whole PowerPoint as well. I'll give you just a second to get that if you want it. Okay, I think that's fine. And then the references are also here. They're all very recent. And even in this year, 2025, there are even more. The research on AI is huge, but I just hope the research continues in the way it should, which is keeping an eye on what the students are doing. So thank you very much for listening to me. I don't know if we have time for questions, but I'm very active on Facebook and LinkedIn. And here's my email address if you wish to contact me at all. Thank you very much indeed.